One of the hardest decisions I ever made in business was firing a $100,000 per month customer. At the time, we were still a young company and just our second year of business. That year, we did about $3.6 million in sales, but if I hadn't fired the customer, we might have hit $4, maybe $4.5 million in sales. But they were about $150,000 past due on their invoices, and I had to make a decision. I had to make a choice. Keep the revenue and hope they paid us, or walk away from one of the biggest customers before they took our entire company down with them. So yes, I fired them. And knowing what I know now, knowing what I know today, I would make the exact same decision. Hey, before I tell you what happened, let me ask you a question. If one of your biggest customers owed you like 200 grand and was slow paying you, would you keep moving their freight or shut them off and risk losing the account? Tell me what you would do in the comments. I'd love to hear from you. Hey, and make sure you stick around because near the end, I'm going to share 4 things that every new freight broker needs to know about protecting their cash flow and potentially their entire business. You see, when you're building a freight brokerage, a large shipper can feel like the answer to every problem. You think about the volume, you think about the revenue, you think about what the customer could mean for your credibility, your cash flow, and your growth. And when you finally land an account that's moving serious freight, your natural instinct is to protect it at all costs. That was the situation we were in. This customer had been a major piece of our business. Losing them would hurt. Replacing $100,000 a month in revenue wasn't something you just do overnight. I mean, a $50,000 or $100,000 a year account may take a few weeks or a couple of months to replace, but a 6-figure per month account, that's a different animal. Those customers don't grow on trees and they take time to develop. But there is a dangerous mistake hiding within that kind of growth. You can become so focused on what a customer's worth that you stop paying attention to what the customer could cost you. The first warning sign was the checks slowed down and days to pay got longer. Customers started paying later and later. 30 days became 60 days late. The outstanding balance kept growing and their credit was getting weaker. And when we learned they weren't just slow paying us, they were slow paying other vendors too, that changed the situation completely. The customer can give you an explanation for paying late. Maybe there was an administrative problem. Maybe the invoices got held up. Maybe somebody's out of the office on vacation. But when you see the same pattern across multiple vendors, that's no longer a paperwork problem. It can be a sign of a much deeper financial issue. And in freight brokerage, that can go bad very, very quickly. We still had to pay our carriers. We still had to pay payroll. We still had overhead. The shipper's financial problems don't stop our obligations. That's the part that new brokers sometimes miss. Revenue on a sales report is not the same thing as cash in the bank. You can look successful on paper and still run out of money. Inside our company, not everyone agreed that we should walk away. There was some pushback. Some people thought we should ride it out, and I understood why. If the customer recovered and paid us, keeping the account might have pushed our annual sales past $4 or $5 million. Walking away meant giving up a large part of our business with no guarantee that we could replace it anytime soon. But keeping them meant taking an even bigger gamble. They already owed us close to 200 grand. Every additional load just increased our exposure. If we continued moving freight and they defaulted, the debt would grow large enough to put us out of business. That was the real decision. It wasn't, do we want this customer? Of course we wanted the customer. It was, are we willing to bet the entire company on the hope that this customer gets his financial house in order? Based on our conversations with them, the payment history, and all the warning signs, the reward was no longer worth the risk. So we started pulling back by accepting fewer loads. And when we pulled back, their payments slowed even more. That gave us the answer we needed. At that point, we stopped accepting loads from them altogether. It took a while, maybe 6 or 7 months, but fortunately we did collect what they owed us. The customer stayed in business, and for a while, somebody looking from the outside in might have said we made the wrong decision. But they continued to struggle. I followed what happened to them for a while, and they eventually filed bankruptcy 3 or 4 years later. Could we have stayed with them a little longer and made more money before that happened? Possibly. Could we also have ended up with a much larger unpaid balance that destroyed our young company? Absolutely. A good business decision is not always the decision that produces the most revenue in the next month or the next quarter. Sometimes the best decision is the one that keeps you alive and in the game. Looking back, I wouldn't change the final decision, but I would change how quickly we escalated the situation. I would get face-to-face with upper-level management sooner. I would ask direct questions about what's happening, how they plan to catch up on past due payments, and what specific assurances they could give us. If those conversations gave us credible answers and the payment behavior improved, maybe we could have continued working under some tighter credit limit terms. But if we got vague promises, delayed answers, and more of the same warning signs, I would cut the exposure sooner. The fact is, hope is not a winning credit policy. And loyalty to a customer can't mean putting your employees, your carriers, and your entire business at unacceptable risk. So there are 4 things I want every new freight broker to take from this story. First, keep reviewing your customer's credit at least 1 to 2 times per year. A customer who was creditworthy a year ago may not be creditworthy today. Winning the account is not the end of due diligence or risk management. Second, watch behavior, not promises. Slower payments, false promises, and problems with vendors are signals. One signal may have an innocent explanation. Several signals creates a pattern. Third, control customer concentration. One big account can accelerate your growth, but it can also become a single point of failure. The more dependent you are on one customer, the harder it becomes to make an objective decision when something goes wrong. And fourth, decide your limits before you're under pressure. Know how much exposure you're willing to accept, who can approve more credit, what triggers can escalate the situation, and what would cause you to stop moving freight altogether. If you wait until a customer owes you a fortune, the decision becomes emotional. You start thinking about the revenue you'll lose instead of the business you need to protect. Okay, so I learned a valuable lesson from this customer that I've carried with me over the years and ever since. No deal is better than a bad deal. The goal is not to land every shipper. The goal is to build a profitable and sustainable freight brokerage, one that can pay its carriers, protect its cash, and stay in business. So if you're serious about starting a freight brokerage and you want a step-by-step plan that covers the real inside view of the freight broker business, not just how to file your authority, download my 7 steps to start and grow a successful freight brokerage. I'll put the link below in the comments. One last thing, don't just watch YouTube videos for the next 6 months. You have to take action. So maybe you want to join my free Freight Broker Startup Hub group and community on Skool. You'll get free training, a community of people on the same journey, and direct access to ask questions as you start your brokerage. It's completely free, and I'll put the link in the description also. See you inside. I'm Dennis Brown, and thank you for watching.